So a little bit more about me. Rebecca already gave an introduction. My parents are European and not given to loud displays of activism. My dad is something of an intellect, and I think it's fair to say that I grew up being quizzed at the dinner table on dates and important, very, very important facts to him. So let's try one, shall we? 1772. What happened in 1772? And there's my sister and I staring blankly. And if anybody wants to take a guess, takers, no? Okay. First partition of Poland. You lost this round. Then he would follow that up with something like, what are they teaching you at that school of yours anyway? Which, I actually remember him saying those words. Which brings me to my next point. That school of mine happened to be a private all-girls school in Toronto, one that my parents sacrificed greatly for me to attend, and one that did not always teach their values. So I did have a good experience. Some might say I even did well, but the classes were peppered with a certain ideology. And that it was a fairly pro-choice point of view, and it's one that I took on, and I learned to accept without a lot of thought. So I went from there to the University of Toronto, where I did an undergrad in European Studies, master's in history. I was not interested in politics and activism of any kind. I found my way into journalism through many, many, many unpaid and low-paid internships. Two in Prague in Czech Republic, and one at Toronto Life magazine, as Rebecca mentioned. I moved to Calgary then, worked for the Western Standard, where I was a reporter and a fact checker. And then I came back east and founded Pro Woman Pro Life in time for the 20th anniversary of the Morgenthaler decision in 2008 with these lovely ladies here and 6 others across the country. So I tell you more details about my journey because I think in this setting in particular, it's pretty average, you know, go to high school, go to university, work, wish you were a student again, that kind of thing. Might not be at that point yet, but I assure you it's coming. So throughout this journey, I was taught that abortion is a choice, a decision for a woman to make. You've heard all this before. Implicit in that notion, in that choice, was the idea that the choice is empowering for women. So I took that on to a fair extent. And only, I think, some time, some reading, some research, some thought, and a little bit of just a return to common sense brought me back to the pro-life position of my family. So I tell all that. I think it's a journey that anyone can make if you're interested and if you have an open mind. And I believe very, very strongly that it is something that every woman must consider and understand within an inch of her life prior to that unwanted surprise of an unwanted pregnancy, when suddenly and very ferociously a fear reaction will kick in and you will find it very, very difficult to understand the facts even of your own case. So I think it's an important issue to be thinking about no matter where you stand so that you know what you're up against. There's 2 elements of worldview I think I just want to go through quickly before I move on. I think that laying the groundwork of where I come to my position from a worldview perspective will help it make more sense, in particular if you are pro-choice. So the first item in this worldview that makes logic of this pro-life being a pro-woman stand is the idea that there is something that is called truth. And I definitely don't always know what it is, but certainly in different fields at this university, it's more evident in sciences and the maths that there would be a truth there, the right number. I was so bad at math, I couldn't even tell you the right sort of comparison, but I think there are likely absolutes in the math field. History, even historical studies, historiography, you're seeking out truth in the field in which you work. Much disagreement on that exists naturally, but you are seeking out what the reality of the history was. So there's this idea that there are absolutes all around us, and the philosophy that is more present in universities these days is that of relativism. Loosely put, the idea that whatever works for you doesn't need to work for me. And the point, of course, I think I already said, is not that you need to agree with me absolutely in what I find to be absolute. The point is that there's this idea of we can know what truth is, and I have come to my pro-life position through looking at the science and looking at a medical textbook and understanding that life starts at conception. I think that's something that I can see and I can know. Life starts at conception. The debatable points in this issue come around personhood and what we do with that, but life starts at conception, and there isn't a medical textbook across the country that won't say that, indeed across the globe. So if you and I debate abortion, and I say, I believe that life in the womb has value, and you say, that's fine as an opinion for you, but not for me, and you shouldn't force your view on me, I might counter by somewhat cheekily asking, do you believe that absolutely? And you might find yourself in a corner. Because if you say, no, I don't believe it absolutely, and actually I could be wrong, and I cannot force my view on you, then you are conversely telling me that I am right, and I do have the right to force my view on others. But if you say, yes, I am absolutely right, you are confirming my view that absolutes do indeed exist. So that's a bit of a philosophical thing and perhaps hard to listen to. But it sort of gets at that notion that there is something out there that's absolute that can be found. The second worldview issue that leads me to my conclusions here today, the second issue is I believe that men and women, wait for it, I believe that men and women are different. 2 university degrees and years of study have led me to this important conclusion. And I believe we cannot make men and women the same, and that we shouldn't try. I don't believe that equality means uniformity, and I don't believe that equality means sameness. So this is not to be simplistic or stereotypical. I personally am annoyed by these sweeping generalizations. I am a woman who does not like to shop, and I do not have a lot of shoes. And neither is this to conclude that because men and women are different, that there are assigned gender roles. I very, very firmly believe that there should be the maximum freedom for either gender to pursue that which is his or her strength. And when you find that, you find your strength and you plug yourself into working in that strength, you will be most happy and most contributing to the world around us. Here's the thing though, as silly as it sounds, and I'm identifying as men and women are different and kind of laughing about it, but there's a large part of our culture that tries to diminish or outright deny the differences between the genders. And I think as a result of that we end up with a pro-abortion culture. Eliminating gender differences is a hallmark of feminism today, and that same brand of feminism is stridently pro-choice.